Hey, you. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking to you. Are you looking for the best way to promote your podcast? It's easy. Just advertise your podcast to your ideal target audience. That's right, listeners of similar podcasts. Podbean has the best and most cost-effective options for you. Just go to the website sponsorship.podbean.com/STR. That's right, your friends here at Scout Team Radio are hooking you up. Go to sponsorship.podbean.com/STR and you will get the best deals to get your podcast rolling. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy Scout Team Radio.
Yeah.
You want to like them, but you can't.
Are you listening?
What?
Are you listening?
Did you bring me on this show to insult me?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all don't want it with us, man. We straight gangsters over here.
Straight
man.
gangsters. Yeah, good morning and welcome back. You are listening to Scout Team Radio. We bring it to you hot and live each and every morning. I am one of your gracious hosts. They call me Loudbeard.
You are the most egotistical, self-deluded person I have ever met.
I don't know about all that. And the man on the other microphone, he is a great patriot. You all know him as
America.
Yeah, it's your boy, Chris America, coming to you live this Monday, the first Monday after the round of 64 and the round of 32. There is lots of celebration and a lot of heartache, especially on our end, Loudbeard.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say heartbreak. You could say heartache. You could say all of those things. But I think you are talking about your Florida Gators and my UCF Knights. I would say that with my expectations of the number 9 UCF Knights going up against the number 1 Duke Blue Devils, that I don't know if I would really call it heartache or heartbreak. Yes, they should have won the game last night. Yes, all of those things. But I am just right now more proud of what my team has accomplished. And for you, on your end, the Florida Gators, are you proud of how well they did considering their regular season being a 19-15 squad?
Well, so here's the thing. My team was a 10 seed. Your team was a 9 seed. We both went into the weekend pretty much expecting to lose. I had Michigan. You had Duke. And that's pretty much what happened. I've always said that if my team loses, I sometimes would rather them get blown out than have that missed shot at the buzzer to win the game, because you get the chance to just kind of take in the loss a lot better, I guess. It's a little bit easier to swallow it when you're not hopeful, when you're not sitting there and you're like, oh my God, we're actually going to do this. Like, this is actually going to happen, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah. That feeling, that sinking feeling, like right when it ends and you think there's no more time, the ball did not go in the basket. What just happened here? And it all kind of sits in and you say, we had it. It was ours. We lost out. And yeah, that's what happened with UCF. And it was the opposite for the Michigan-Florida Gator game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was straight. I mean, it was close the first half, but then I think we came out and they scored like 10, 12 on us in a row. And I was like, that's it. It's over. Just give it up. I mean, Florida was really an NIT team. It had no business being in the tournament.
Yeah, but hey, they made it to the second round, or I guess they call it the third round because the first round's the play-in games. Well, they made it to this round, right? The round of 32. And they won their first game, and they got a chance to play Michigan, which Michigan was the better team on the court. Okay, so this Duke-UCF game, this to me was by far the best game of the entire weekend. It had the big stars, right? Zion Williamson was getting pumped up. I think ESPN was just goo-goo and gaga over Taco Fall versus Zion Williamson. This was probably the most hyped game of the weekend, and it lived up to all of that hype. And with it ending in heartbreak, ending on a buzzer beater or lack thereof of a shot missed at the buzzer. There was a lot of things that happened in this game, but I will say that by far, out of all the games I watched over the weekend, this was the most entertaining game. Now, I'm a UCF fan, so that could have added a little bit to it. But when you looked at that star power of Taco versus Zion, when you looked at just this close game battled back and forth, it was never a blowout at any point. I think Duke had an 8-point lead. I don't think they ever got to double digits. I'd have to go back and double check that. But it was a great game from start to finish, and there was hope there. And now I think the cat is out of the bag as far as Duke. They're not unstoppable, right? Everybody picked them to be their winner on their brackets, but it looks like they're very beatable. All you have to do is go out and get a 7'6" guy. That's all it takes to beat Duke.
Yeah, that's all it takes is get a guy out there like that. Try to not get him in the foul trouble. We mentioned that on Friday that if Duke is going to beat them, that's going to be what they want to do is get Taco into foul trouble, and they did it early and often. The officiating, it wasn't one-sided, but it was poorly officiated game. There was a lot of I couldn't figure out how they were calling fouls, and it's one of the most frustrating thing about basketball is sometimes I think referees just make it up as they go. Like, oh, that little bump in the chest, that's a foul. But that player just got murdered? No, we'll let that one slide. And
Yeah,
the biggest missed foul of them all was on that missed free throw. At first I was like, man, how do you miss that rebound if you're UCF? And then when you check the replay, it's because the player on one side had his arm hooked, completely hooked, and then the player on the other side got a double hand push in the back by the guy who actually ended up rebounding the ball and putting it back into the basket. So I sometimes I'm like, you got to play on, but when it's that egregious in that close of a game, you don't just hand over one team the game like that.
Yeah, and that's tough. I mean, you don't ever want to blame the officials.
And I'm not, but it was just you just don't do it in that moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
You call the calls that need to be called, and that was a call that needed to be called. The UCF lost, in my opinion, because of that terrible last 2 minutes of the first half.
yeah, that too. No,
I mean, if they play well the entire game, then they win that game handily. They win it by not handily, but by 6 or 7 points.
when you look back, when it's a 1-point game, you can reflect back on a lot of different situations. I saw a lot of people blaming the missed alley-oop. Now, that was a big play.
That was painful. And you feel for that kid that misses it because you know that one's going to haunt him for a really long time.
Yeah, that it is. Real quick, Chris America, we're Scout Team Radio. We bring it to you hot and live every morning. We're also on Twitter, so you can interact with us. We've got Ian from Rehab Sports at Ian_Rehab Sports hitting us up already. He said, hey, Scout Team Radio, how are you going not to mention Aubrey Dawkins dropping 30? Well, as we dig deeper into this game, I will say Aubrey Dawkins, BJ Taylor, and Taco Fall, the three of them are what drove UCF. That's the heart and soul of that team. And Aubrey having a huge night. Of course, Johnny Dawkins, the coach, former Duke player, former Duke coach. This was a big game for him, and his son had a huge game. I mean, there was a lot of layers to this, but this was a beautiful moment. And Aubrey Dawkins, he looked like he couldn't miss at some points during this game.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think the big story here is that UCF was just poorly seeded. This game should have happened Sweet 16 or Elite 8. That's when this game needed to happen. To have your best game, your most evenly matched game between your one seed and somebody else, it should not be coming in the round of 32, right?
No, I don't think so either. And
that was that's the worst part is like, man, now what do we have to look forward to? Like, I mean, not that there's not any other great teams and that there's not going to be other great games, but you kind of wish you could have, like, the NCAA is sitting here thinking, man, we should have squeezed more out of that Taco Fall, out of that Taco Fall juice. But yeah, Taco Fall was the story going into the game, but Aubrey Dawkins, man, tapped into his dad's magic juice or whatever his dad used to become the second leading scorer in Duke history and just went off last night. And that's where you have another shame. It's like Zion Williams and Taco Fall was the story, but Aubrey Dawkins was the MVP.
oh yeah, he was the best player on the court in my opinion. Now, Zion, obviously we all know the legend of Zion, and he did. He scored a ton. He looked good out there, though he struggled when Taco was in the middle.
Yeah.
He struggled to get to the rim, and them getting Taco into foul trouble was the best thing for Duke. That helped them out quite a bit. And you could see why Zion is such a good player, because he's just a big body, and he gets in there. He's fast. He's got a lot of, I don't know, he's tenacious. There's a lot of good things about Zion, but when you look at the game overall, there were some other pieces that stood out, and Aubrey's performance was amazing. And it kind of makes me wonder, this was that highlight game, that spotlight game where guys like Taco Fall and Aubrey Dawkins and even BJ Taylor, who are all, they could be fringe, end of second round type NBA draft pick kind of guys. To these guys, this game was huge because now they're in that national spotlight where people saw them and got a chance to see what these guys could do.
Yeah, unless you were watching the Zion cam. Then you didn't see anybody else but Zion Williamson.
I know, which is crazy because there's other players on Duke that are, I'm not going to say just as good, but just to have one cam dedicated to one dude the entire time, nah, come on. RJ Barrett, that's disrespectful to him, honestly.
Some people are into that, though. Some people just get so obsessed that they love seeing that. Just like when there's the national championship game, you have like the Nick Saban and the coaching cam, and people just like to watch the coach walk up and down and make scouring faces and yell at players. Some people are just into that kind of thing, I guess. It's not my thing. I like to watch the whole game. I like to see everything going on. And, I mean, we knew this going into the tournament, but Duke just looked so average outside of Zion Williamson. Did they not?
Yeah, and when he was out hurt, I think they went 3-3. That was a very average record to have.
Yeah.
Without Zion, this team would struggle. So if he gets any sort of injury or if he gets into foul trouble, teams are going to exploit that. So Duke they're not the slam dunk, pardon the pun, slam dunk number one, easy win. I mean, this isn't their tournament, right? There's other teams out there. To me, teams like North Carolina and Gonzaga, they're showing me that they can contend just as well as Duke will.
Yeah, and that's what I thought that UCF should have done. I mean, I'm not going to Coach Dawkins. He coached a hell of a game last night, but I wish they would have forced the issue with Taco and Zion on their side of the ball. Make Zion foul, Taco fall. Like, just throw it down to Taco and just have him go up strong. You live and die if he misses it, but have him draw fouls and get Zion Williams out of the game. Or Zion Williamson, sorry.
Yes. No, I'm with you on that. And I think Zion ended up with 3 fouls, and he had gotten one early. And I said, oh, man, if they can get him into foul trouble, this game, it's very attainable. It didn't quite happen that way. And Taco getting fouled out, he would have been in there for that last rebound on that missed field goal or missed free throw. There's just a lot of little details to this game that you look back and you woulda, coulda, shoulda. But that's what makes this great. This is what March Madness is all about. This game, to me, was indicative of why people love March Madness, is because you never know who's going to win. They play it on the court, and you have to fight and kick and scratch and work your way up to win this tournament. And Duke, if they win it all, they can look back at this game and say, wow, this was one of the toughest games we had, and it was in the second round. This isn't even, not even Sweet 16 yet. And so this is how it works out.
That's kind of why I said, man, I'm not going to sit there and say Duke is definitely going to win this thing, because, man, you got to win 6 or 7 games in a row. And you're going to fight against teams like UCF who are going to come at you harder than you've had any team come at you all season long. And had Aubrey Dawkins' putback tip been wasn't as hard as he did it, because that's what made him miss that shot. He tipped it in. It bounced too hard off of the backboard and came out off to the front of the rim and bounced the wrong way. Had he tipped it a little bit softer, that goes in, Duke is out of the tournament, man.
That's all it would have taken. That is it.
And it was kind of a disappointing weekend as far as the madness. We call March Madness because brackets get busted this weekend. And I feel like if you picked a lot of the top seeds to make it to the Sweet 16, your bracket's okay. There weren't many upsets. Murray State was that team that looked like, oh, they're gonna make a deep run. They got blown out by Florida State. Iowa, man, they went down big. They come back and tie it against Tennessee, forced the game into overtime, but just ran out of juice. They couldn't get the upset against number 2 Tennessee. Florida just wasn't even close. That was another team that maybe people thought, hey, man, it's Florida. You never know what's going to happen. But all in all your 1 seeds and 2 seeds, I believe, are through the tournament. Am I not mistaken?
No, you're right on there. The upsets, yeah. Right now, I ask you, who's that Cinderella team? That's the big story, right? Who's the Cinderella? We have no Cinderellas getting it to the Sweet 16.
None at all. I guess your Cinderella's going to have to be a 4 seed or a 3 seed, right?
Yeah, I think the only matchup, there was a 4 versus a 5 where the 5 won, but it's like, well, that's not really an upset, is it, when it's a 4 versus a 5? Everything else was chalk, and it's crazy because you look at it and you're like, that's kind of not exciting. This is what we want. We want those upsets. We want that Cinderella team, so we can't talk about Cinderellas because there is none. Now, do you think that's bad for March Madness? Do you think that's bad for the tournament that there's not a single Cinderella?
No, I think that's kind of the beauty of the tournament because it works out either way. I mean, look, the teams left, you have Michigan, Texas Tech, Gonzaga, LSU, Michigan State, Duke, Virginia. Those are all your big fan bases, so you're glad that you keep all of those fan bases interested. The country's interested in those teams, and you have a win there. If you do end up with an upset, then hey, you get to talk about that, and you get to talk about the upset, and people kind of fall in love with those Cinderellas, and they start watching there. So there really is no wrong answer for this tournament, and that's the beauty of it, man. That's what college football misses out on every single year.
Yeah, and eventually college football will change. It just maybe 50 years down the road.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that Iowa-Tennessee game. That game was just straight fire. It was a lot of fun to watch, and the fact that Iowa had that big comeback. I was hoping Iowa would upset Tennessee, but they come short of the upset. Another game that really caught my attention over the weekend, Maryland versus LSU. It was early Saturday, so I don't think it got the hype that some of these other games got. And after all the other games that have happened throughout the tournament, you kind of forget about Saturday morning or early Saturday games. But Maryland, LSU, that game, that also had that madness that we're looking for. And so March Madness isn't just about the upsets. It's also about these last-second games, the buzzer beaters. And just like Aubrey Dawkins misses that final layup, on the other end, LSU does not. So this Maryland-LSU game, back and forth. LSU drains a 3 with less than a minute left. Maryland comes back. Jalen Smith from Maryland, he hits a 3 to tie it up. It's tied with just a few seconds left. LSU comes down the court, and they just get a beautiful drive to the bucket, a nice lay-in, and they win at the buzzer. And honestly, this could have gone either way. Maryland could have upset LSU easily, but to me, that's the madness between that UCF-Duke game, that Iowa-Tennessee overtime game, and that Maryland-LSU game. Those were the 3 games this weekend that, to me, that is why we watch, and that is what March Madness is all about.
Yeah, man, we love it. And it was a fun weekend. Like I said, there were no upsets, but that doesn't mean there weren't great games. And you mentioned all of them right there. ACC and SEC seem to be the conferences to beat. Ohio State, man, they just couldn't get it done last night. They looked like they could have made a late run push and, carry the Big Ten in there. But right now it looks like it's just Michigan State. Is there anybody else from the Big Ten that I'm missing? No, I think that's it. So, but you got Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina, all from the ACC, and Florida State. That's 5 of the Sweet 16, and then you have LSU, Kentucky. Who else am I missing from the SEC? I'm trying to scroll through the things, but I know they have 25% of the Sweet 16 as well, the SEC and the ACC. Who am I missing?
Well, it's not Alabama, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely not Alabama. Somebody texted me and said there was Auburn. Auburn's still in there, and Tennessee.
Auburn was that 5 seed.
Yeah, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, and Kentucky from the SEC. That makes up a quarter of the Sweet 16, and then you go to the ACC, which has 5. I'm more surprised about the SEC than the ACC, but we'll see how it shakes out. This is where the men separate themselves from the boys in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8.
All right. So coming out of this weekend, who is it that is standing out to you, or who's looking the best? Who right now are you saying, okay, I could see them easily making a run? Anybody sticking out or standing out to you?
North Carolina looked really hot. I mean, have they really had any struggles yet throughout the tournament? They're doing what a 1 seed should do, right? Just kind of winning easily against Iona, winning easily against Washington. I think I'd have to look at the other scoreboards because it's so hard to remember, the 64 different teams, and then you got to watch all the 32 different teams. So I'm trying to rack my brain and think here, but Gonzaga took care of business pretty easily too, did they not? I really didn't watch that.
73-71 against Baylor. Yeah, nothing. There's a lot of blowouts. That's what I was a little frustrated about. I thought there'd be a few more close games. There was 3 or 4 games worth watching. Wofford versus Kentucky was another one where it was kind of close. Everything else seemed like it was blowouts. And, I mean, I look at a team like Florida State. They looked really good against Murray State. They scored 90 on them. But you look at the competition, was Murray State that good? Or, they were kind of that Cinderella that got upended?
I mean, it's just, you had the Ja Morant kid, and what do you do when there's just one good kid on a team? You
smother him.
You smother him.
That's all you do. Michigan looked good against Florida. So, there was a lot of teams that won like they should have won. Virginia Tech takes care of Liberty. You've got Michigan State, 20-point win over Minnesota. I mean, these teams easily win. So now we're going to kind of separate who is for real, right? Who's the legit team? And, is Duke legit? Is Gonzaga legit? Are they going to be able to handle business moving forward? And Sweet 16, we're going to have some good matchups because you're going to see teams like Gonzaga go up against a very tough Florida State team. I know you hate to hear that, being a Florida Gator fan, but Florida State, they've impressed me all tournament long, and even towards the end of the regular season, they were playing really tough, no matter who they were playing. So this Florida State team, they could give Gonzaga fits.
Yeah, and that's why, I don't know where Gonzaga is going to fall, but that could be where they fall. Florida State is sadly to say, a very good basketball team, a very well-run basketball program. They've been it's been a very slow build for this Florida State team. But when you look back 10 years ago to today, man, they've come a long ways. And Auburn, look out for Auburn. North Carolina, I did say that North Carolina looks really good. I think they're going to get all they can handle from Auburn because now that I'm actually looking through it, I do like this Auburn team. I hate to admit it, but they look good against New Mexico State. They easily took care of Kansas. At no point in time did Kansas ever threaten to even remotely try to win that game against Auburn.
No, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Auburn wasn't even on my radar, I guess I should say here, because I was surprised to see Auburn handle Kansas that easily, because Kansas is one of those teams that is synonymous with the Final Four, right? Like they're always in this question, or they're always in the conversation.
Sweet 16, Elite 8, you're just pencil Kansas in.
Always, yeah. Great coaching, great team.
This year, this Kansas team was not that good. And, when you sit there and you think about their season and you think, wow, I remember when they lost to Texas on the road. They lost here, they lost there. Man, what were they doing as a 4 seed? Did they get misseeded? Probably just because, hey, it's Kansas. Let's give them a high seed because it's just Kansas.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes, sometimes you overrank teams because of their name, right?
So UCF I think got underrated. I think they should have been maybe a 6 or a 7 seed. I don't know. That changes their path dramatically. And Kansas, maybe they should have been an 8 or 9 seed like UCF was. Because I don't think Kansas would have taken Duke to a 1-point game all the way to the final buzzer like UCF did.
Yeah. Well, UCF was a little bit confusing from time to time throughout the year. They had their ups, which beating a team like Houston, who is still in this conversation, still in the Sweet 16, beating a team like Cincinnati. They had really quality wins, especially towards the end of the season. Then in the conference tournament, they get blown out by 20 points to Temple. And that hurts your seeding when in your conference champion or conference, not championship, but the conference tournament, you end up losing by 20 to a team like Temple, which was a play-in team. So when you that kind of stuff hurts your seeding, and then you get stuck in a bracket with Duke. So you can't do that. You got to take care of business when you need to take care of business. But UCF, first time ever winning a game in the tournament, I don't know. I got to hang my hat on something, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just like I mentioned, Florida State was a slow build. UCF, I mean, it cannot be expressed how much the AD, Danny White, is doing at UCF. I mean, and it's easy to see. UCF has been primed for this kind of growth in all sports. They just needed the money. They just needed the support. They just needed, the student support, the alumni support. And now that they got this thing cranking, watch out for this UCF athletic program, man. Danny White's making all the right hires, making all the right moves, and now they're building facilities upon facilities. We go out there every week to watch, the Orlando Apollos play at their stadium or their football stadium, and it seems like there's just new construction sites going up every time we go over there. They call UCF under construction forever for a reason, and watch out for UCF, man. Other Power 5 teams in the state of Florida and in the Southeast better pray that UCF never receives Power 5 media money, because it'll just blow up even more. I mean, you give them $30 to $42 million a year in media money, plus you take in the fact that they can play Power 5 competition and tell recruits you're going to be in a Power 5 conference, and you add in the fact that it's in Central Florida, man. It's in Orlando. Orlando is not your typical college town. It's got that small town feel when you're out by UCF, but at the same time, it doesn't. It feels like a college town, but then you're right down the street from downtown Orlando, and I know a lot of people think, Orlando's not that big of a city, but it's bigger than Gainesville. It's bigger than Tuscaloosa. It's bigger than most of your college towns, and they have so much to do. You're you're like 25 minutes, 30 minutes from the beach. Watch out for UCF, man, if they continue on this path.
Oh, absolutely. I can only say great job hyping up UCF. I appreciate that.
I tell everybody that whines and cries about UCF, and they're like, I can't wait for UCF to go back to being a nobody school. You're going to be waiting a long time, man. You're going to be waiting a long time, because they're on this upward trend that I don't see stopping anytime soon. There might be one or two seasons, step backs for basketball or football, but they'll relock and reload. It's not like they're going to go back to Nowheresville.
No, I'm with you, man. I think a lot of the haters want that to happen, where they step back and, we told you they're just a nobody school. But you're right. Everything's pointing up, and UCF keeps moving in the right direction.
It's just because they hate and they've never been to Orlando, man. Like you step foot on UCF's campus and you're amazed. Like, everything's brand new, everything's state of the art. Not just like the facilities, but just the campus itself. It's a beautiful campus. There's so much going on there. They've done such a fantastic job building that university up.
Oh, it is. It is. And I'm proud to be an alumni of that school. I am. I did want to mention, we're about 2 minutes away from our commercial break. I said there wasn't a Cinderella, but I could be wrong. Oregon, the only 12 seed left, the only kind of high-seeded school that's left. Now, they were going up against UC Irvine, who was a 13th seed, so it wasn't really an upset this week, but they're going to be going up against Virginia in the next round. Now, Oregon being the 12th seed, the highest seed still in the tournament, and Virginia, who struggled in their first round, and you look at that and you think, man, this could be the upset, that 1 versus 12. Do you think Oregon can pull off a victory up against Virginia?
Well, I mean, Virginia's the team to do it, right? We were kind of like, oh no, here we go again, when Virginia was losing to Gardner-Webb on, what was that, Friday? I think it was. And, man, did they take care of business against Oklahoma, though. Oregon kind of lucking out. It's kind of one of the beautiful things about the tournament is they don't reseed. So if you're that 12 seed and you beat your higher seeded team, you automatically get to take that team's easier path to the finals, right? So that's kind of how that works. And then they lucked out that Kansas State fell to UC Irvine. Kansas State, maybe another team that was overrated. They overstated how good that team was. They made them a 4 seed along with Kansas. Maybe they just got confused and they're like, let's just throw both Kansases in at the 4 seed. They got the word Kansas in it. They must be good. And UC Irvine took care of business there. So Oregon kind of lucked out that they beat a Wisconsin team that I guess they were correctly seeded. I thought Wisconsin was a pretty solid team. Was surprised they lost the way they did to Oregon. And then they got to play UC Irvine. Now the road gets tough because it's all higher seeds from here, man.
It does, but Oregon's one of those teams, when you look at their record, you think, oh, they're not that good because they didn't have this great record like some of these other teams. But they were hot at the second half of the season. A lot of their losses came early in the season. And so sometimes you got to take that momentum that comes in. So this is a great opportunity. Oregon can become that Cinderella. If they beat Virginia in the Sweet 16 and go in as that 12th seed heading into the Elite 8, that'll become the big story out of this next round. I mean,
they got to carry that Pac-12 banner, right? I mean, could you imagine there would be no Pac-12 teams in the Sweet 16 and you still consider that a Power 5 school or Power 5 conference?
Yeah, no, it's not looking pretty over there for the Pac-12, man.
Everybody in the Pac-12 got to go hard for Oregon this weekend.
Yeah, it's got to go in. You got to represent your conference. Pac-12, they're the last survivor there, and Houston's the last survivor in the American. And so I think the American, when you look at it, they're just as good as Pac-12. So
Yeah.
Pac-12 better watch out. The American might overtake them and become that next Power 5, or in basketball they consider it the Power 6 because they include the Big East in there. But, the American, they're up and coming. I like it. So, Chris America, after the break, we've got a Johnny Manziel sighting.
Yes,
Stay
we
tuned,
do.
man.
Mic'd up and everything.
Hey, Kawhi, what are you laughing at, man? This isn't funny. Fantasy sports reimagined. FanDuel, that's what I'm talking about. It is more than just fantasy sports. It's the best way to watch the games, win real cash, and bring the action right to your living room. Just choose a contest, make your picks, watch, and win. And if you go to FanDuel.com/STR today, you can get a $5 deposit bonus. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/STR. Come on, man. This is not a laughing matter.
When I'm working hard, I build up a thirst for sports. That's when I grab a cold 12-ounce sports radio. Ah, 12-ounce sports radio. Quench your sports thirst.
If you've been listening to Scout Team Radio for a long time, you know that myself, Loudbeard, has placed a bet or two in his day. That's right, I've lost the beard bet, I lost the romper bet, but one place I don't like losing is when I bet money, and I can easily do that at MyBookie. That's right, you can go to mybookie.ag, use promo code 12OZSports, and get a 100% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Hey, guess what? That is a lot of money. Do it.
Hey everybody, it's your favorite Patriot, Chris America, and I want you to listen every single weekday, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., and on replays from 11 a.m. to noon of Scout Team Sports. Listen, George Washington did not cross over the ocean blue in 1492 to defeat the Nazis, so you can listen to the same tired national clickbait sports stories. So once again, tune in to us every single morning, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., and then we replay from 11 to noon. I will see you there, and God bless America.
Yeah, welcome back. Thank you all for listening in. We appreciate it. Once again, we are Scout Team Radio. He is Chris America. I am Loudbeard. We bring it to you hot and live each and every morning on 12 Ounce Sports Radio. We come in live at 6 a.m., replay on at 11 a.m. We also drop each and every show as a podcast. Make sure you check that out. You can either search Scout Team Radio at Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, anywhere like that, or you can check out our website, scoutteamradio.com, to get the latest episodes. We are also partnered with Barn Burner. Barn Burner is a podcast network based out of Canada, and they have a great partnership with us here at Scout Team Radio, so we appreciate Barn Burner for dropping our podcast on their podcast network. If you want to get social with Scout Team Radio, make sure you hit us up on Twitter at Scout Team Radio. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, but if you tweet at us, we will read your tweets on the air, just like Ian, at Ian_Rehab Sports. He's hitting us up early. He says, Oregon is 12 out of the trash Pac-12. Trash Pac-12. Kind of have to agree with you, Ian. And hit us up on Twitter. We like it. We like to get social. We like to interact with all of our listeners. Well, Chris America, I had to do it. I had to bring up Johnny Manziel. He is that hot topic, not the store at the mall, but the real hot topic here coming out of the weekend for the Alliance.
I love the Hot Topic reference.
Thank you.
Is that still a store? Like, is that still a thing?
I guess.
I haven't
the
been
mall
to a mall
I go
in, like,
to
forever.
is over here where I live is like dead and half the stores are closed. I think like bigger malls might still
Yeah.
have Hot Topics.
I would love to go deeper into that conversation, but I'm not going to bore people that don't know what we're talking about. But it is crazy that mall is still open. That any mall is still open, really.
Poor malls. They're dying like the rest of retail.
Amazon killed him.
Gosh,
Slayed 'em.
Amazon. Unbelievable. Well, Johnny Manziel, bringing him
Yes.
up, bringing him in hot. So he makes his debut for the Alliance,
Yes.
and
The
crowd roared, didn't it?
The Alliance found him like you find a good pair of Jordans at a not a good pair of Jordans, like a little bit of a beat up pair of Jordans like you find at a Goodwill. That's what the Alliance got Johnny Manziel at. A good valued product that's kind of beat up and worn out, but you still buy them anyways because they're Jordans and they were like $10.
Hey, that's a heck of a deal. And Johnny Manziel comes in, and what does he do? He scrambles immediately, gets a nice first down pickup, and we know why Johnny Football is Johnny Football, because he can do it all. He can throw, he can run, he can get the crowd excited, and that's why he is getting this 15th chance at being a professional football player.
And what was the score of the game?
The Express won. I wrote it down here somewhere. I don't have it in front of me, but I know the Express won in overtime.
Oh, is that the first overtime game?
First overtime game for the Alliance, but Johnny Manziel wasn't the quarterback in overtime. He came in the second quarter. He left in the fourth quarter. They brought back starting quarterback Brandon Silvers, and Brandon Silvers, he brings them back and gets this big overtime win. So I don't know if Singletary's just trying to play both quarterbacks, which is a strategy that you don't see very often in professional football, but you almost should. Sometimes when you have two talented quarterbacks, you give one guy a shot, see if he's got it, and if he doesn't have it going on, you put in the other guy, and you can kind of go back and forth. But you don't see it too much. But Brandon Silvers ends up getting the big overtime victory for the Memphis Express.
Yeah, now I wish I would have watched. So wrapped up into March Madness, I honestly completely forgot. I know I saw on Twitter that the Orlando Apollos ended up clinching their first playoff berth. Congratulations to them. You kind of saw that coming, though. Good to see them bounce back after their first loss. They're now 6-1 in the league. Just utterly destroyed the Atlanta Legends. But yeah, I was so wrapped up into the madness of March of college basketball that I think that's going to be one of those times of the season where the AAF is just going to struggle with viewership and ratings, because even the NBA, I think, loses its luster once the tournament starts.
Yeah, that's why the NBA waits to start their playoffs till after March Madness is done, because then you go from March Madness directly into the NBA playoffs. It feels like it's a smooth transition. But right now, yeah, there's that little bit of lull. It's the end of the season for the NBA. A lot of teams have already clinched. A lot of teams are resting guys. So the NBA is like, okay, March Madness, you can have the spotlight. We'll pick it right back up when you're done. With the AAF, this is a tough time for them. They're gonna struggle to get the viewership, like you mentioned, the ratings. They're gonna struggle with that. I tuned in this Apollos game for just a few minutes. I didn't get to watch too much of it because I turned it on and the Apollos had already had a huge lead. And it's hard to watch a game like this when you have March Madness going on and a team is already destroying the other team. Wasn't even worth watching, even though it's our hometown team. I still struggled to really get into it. But 36-6 is the final score. The Legends didn't have a chance in this game. And it looked like the Apollos were hungry. They wanted to bounce back after that heartbreaking defeat they took last week from the Arizona Hotshots.
Yeah, they needed to do that, and Atlanta was the perfect team for you to have after a loss because, God, they are not that good. We thought 2 or 3 weeks ago when they started Murray that maybe they'll turn things around, maybe they'll figure things out, but as you can see, we played Atlanta week 1, game 1 of the full season, and there hasn't been no difference from week 1 to today or to yesterday or this past weekend. They look like the exact same team, the totally mismatched team going against the Apollos.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're starting to see these teams rise to the top. Orlando's only loss was to the Hotshots. The Hotshots have a huge game. They went up 32-15, and their quarterback, John Wolford, he has another big game with 4 total TDs. The Hotshots are the one team, as an Apollos fan, that makes me a little nervous when it gets into playoff time.
Yeah, he's a pretty even-keeled guy. That's one of the things that I picked up from watching him play and then hearing him answer questions during the press conference when we covered the Apollos game against the Hotshots 2 weeks ago, or I guess it was 2 weekends ago. Even when they're playing, he never seemed to lose his cool. He never seemed to lose his. He never got flustered. Anytime they got blitzed, he would run around, make plays that needed to be made, and then afterwards, I mean, you just came back beating the best team in the Alliance. You gave the team their first loss ever, and you ended a 3-game losing streak. And I got to tell you, man, it felt like his team lost when we did the press conference, did it not?
Yeah, he didn't take that as a moral victory by any means, or the victory. He didn't take that lightly. He's intense, and I like it.
Yeah, he was an intense guy, man, and he came in, there was no smiles. He was all business, answered our questions. We even talked about, how does it feel to get off the 3-game losing streak? And he's like, it's good, but we can't celebrate too much. We got to build off of this win because we can go back to losing any time. So Hotshots, they came in as one of the favored teams. A lot of people put them as the top team in the Alliance. They had that 3-game losing streak. Now it looks like they've corrected their course, getting that win last week against the Apollos and now continuing again this weekend.
Oh, yeah, big time. Now, another team I want to mention, that would be the San Antonio Commanders. They get a big victory over Salt Lake, 19-15. It's kind of a fun back-and-forth game, tight to the end. But they improved to 5-2, so the Commanders have a good record, and they're quietly doing it. We talked about the Apollos and the Hotshots. Commanders are a quietly good team, so we got to keep an eye out for them also.
Yeah, for sure. And Loudbeard, you mentioned
Yes.
A lot of teams clinching the playoffs in the NBA. But
Yes.
there's also some teams that were eliminated from the playoffs in the NBA. And one specifically with the second greatest player of all time, LeBron James. It's going to miss it. It'll be the first time in 9 seasons, am I correct? That
Yep.
he hasn't made the finals?
If not more, I'd have to go back and look. But, yeah, at least 9, right?
No, he's
'Cause
been
he was
to 9. No, yeah, he's
3
been
and
to 9
6.
total finals. He's 3-6. So it was 8 straight in a row because the first time he went to the finals was 2007 with the Cavs.
Yep.
So first time in 8 seasons, no LeBron James in the finals. Do
Yeah, I'm
we need
looking-
to have no Golden State Warriors in the finals too? Do we need that to happen?
I think we do. And, Golden State Saturday ends up playing the Dallas Mavericks, and they lose 126-91, the biggest loss in the Steve Kerr era. You look at that and you think, I don't know, man. Golden State, they're kind of going a little lackadaisical into this playoff push.
Yeah, and especially for a team that doesn't have the 1 seed locked up. Now, I know a lot of teams don't feel like the home court advantage is that big of a deal, but to me, I still think it is. Like, LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, they never cared to have the 1 seed, the number 1 overall 1 seed. Maybe they would have won. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but things could have been different if they would have had home court advantage, if they would have made a stronger push into the playoffs. And Golden State's got to be careful going into these playoffs. Like you said, lackadaisical.
Yeah, there's so many other teams that are hungry. It's kind of like Duke in this March Madness push. When teams go against Duke, they're going to give them their absolute best, and they're going to come up and show up for that game because it's Duke. You want to take out the king. Well, now you're looking at in the NBA, Golden State has run through the Western Conference the last few years, and these other teams, they're wanting to step up and show it. And there is a ton of talent in the Western Conference. I mean, when you look at teams like the Nuggets, who kind of emerged out of nowhere, teams like the Rockets, who really took Golden State to the brink last year, any one of these teams can emerge. And even a team like San Antonio. San Antonio has been hot as of late, and they're serious about making a good push into the playoffs. Golden State's going to have to be careful because they're going to have to win round after round against teams that are going to be straight up gunning for them because they do not want Golden State to own the West one more year. And now that LeBron's out of it, it could be a LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry-less finals if Golden State gets knocked off. And I think there's lots of possibilities out there. And again, this huge loss, I can't put too much weight onto it because they did bounce back and win on Sunday, but still, there's something about it. And Kerr comes out and he says he values getting his team healthy and giving them rest up until the end and not so much the 1 seed. But I'm with you. That 1 seed, it should matter. And it's a bad look. When you start losing like that, it becomes a culture. You see big losses like that, you accept that. And the Golden State Warriors team 2 and 3 years ago would never have accepted losing 126-91 to the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, maybe the Warriors looked down at their standings in the Western Conference and saw the San Antonio Spurs sitting at the 8th seed, and they thought, we want no business doing that. Round 1.
Oh, yeah.
Let's slide to 2 and take on the Jazz instead.
Oh, big time, man. Aldridge for the San Antonio Spurs has a huge game yesterday, and the Spurs are just better than what we expected them to be. They're coming out of their shell, and you don't want to get a team going into the playoffs red hot if you're the 1 seed, right? You don't want to be that 1 seed that gets upended by the 8th seed, and the Spurs could be that sneaky team that does it. They could be.
Yeah, and our Orlando Magic, they're hanging around. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and it feels like they have to keep the pedal straight down to the floor if they're going to make this playoff run happen. Miami Heat, they finally had a loss earlier in the weekend. They won again, though, last night, I believe. But Magic, 4-game winning streak, just 1 game behind the Heat. Man, I would really want them to make it into the playoffs. We see how excited we get behind UCF. People probably don't remember, but when this town gets behind the Orlando Magic and the Orlando Magic are in the playoffs, it is crazy here. It is nuts. And we saw a little bit of that playoff atmosphere the other night when we went to overtime against, who did we go to overtime against? The Memphis Grizzlies, right?
Yep.
I believe that was Thursday. I don't remember, but I was watching that game, and I had a couple of friends who went to that game, and they said that the arena was electric. It was loud. It was raucous. And, man, I really hope the Orlando Magic make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I do too. Now, a team that I'm a little nervous about, Chris America, they're the 5th seed in the East, and that's the Boston Celtics. They have dropped 4 straight. And we've been up and down with the Celtics all season. I mean, this team looks like they're going to go into the playoffs, and I don't know, there's just so many question marks about it. This should have been the hot team last year in the playoffs. They were that kind of Cinderella team that was pushing their way through without their superstars. But Boston Celtics lose 4 games in a row, and they're just not looking that good. They lose to the Spurs 115-96, and that's that game. Aldridge ends up with 48 points. Boston's struggling mightily right now.
Yeah, we mentioned the importance of home court advantage and everything. If they get the 5 seed, then the Pacers are going to have the home court advantage in that first round. They're both really bad away teams. The Pacers are 17-20, and the Celtics are 17-19. I got to say, whoever has home court advantage in that series is probably going to end up winning that series and advancing to the next round. The Celtics better pick it up and figure out a way. I don't think they can catch up to the Pacers, but they better figure out how to win on the road otherwise, because they're going to be finding themselves an early exit of the playoffs if they don't.
Now, if they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, this season will look like a colossal failure.
Oh, for sure. No doubt. And I think that'll be the nail in the coffin for Kyrie Irving coming back. I don't know where he stands. He seems very wishy-washy, does he not, right now?
Oh, yeah, big time. I don't know. I don't trust him. If I was a Boston fan right now, I don't trust Kyrie Irving.
No, not at all. But you know that winning and advancing and making progress through the playoffs will help keep him more than it will hurt, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
getting bounced out, especially if they lose in 5 or 6 games, won't be a good look. If they lose 2 on the road, they get 2 at home, and then they lose, the next 2, and they lose 4-1. Not a good look. And I think if that happens, excuse me as I hold off a burp, I think if that happens, goodbye Kyrie Irving. I don't know where he goes, but I don't think he comes back to Boston.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of this is a big free agency class. We don't know what's going on with Kyrie. Kawhi is another big name out there. We're going to see fireworks when it comes free agency time. Kemba Walker's a player that could easily move teams. I'm actually pretty excited for it. I'm excited to see what happens. Now, Chris America, we've been talking quite a bit here about the NBA. I hope you don't mind, but there's big news in the NFL. Yesterday, Rob Gronkowski announces his retirement. Any surprise here, and what do you think this means for the Patriots moving forward?
I don't think it means much, to be honest with you. Had he done this 4 or 5 seasons ago, I would have said, man, this is a huge loss, but he's almost become sort of a liability on the field, right?
Yeah, he looked like he was lost a step, and he would have 1 or 2 big catches throughout a game, but the rest of the game he would disappear. Like, what is that guy doing?
He wasn't living up to the contract he was making production-wise. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't deserve to get paid what he was getting paid. He earned every single penny. It's just it didn't turn into production on the field. It definitely turned in production for business. Fans still love to watch Gronkowski.
Jersey sales.
You tune in to watch Rob Gronkowski for sure, maybe hoping that he finds that game, that he taps into the old Gronk that is spiking footballs and, winking at girls in the stands, that kind of deal. But, I think it was time to go. It probably should have happened maybe 2 seasons ago, but definitely for sure now is definitely the time. It kind of shows you how big football is too, right? Because my Twitter timeline was March Madness, March Madness, March Madness. Then he drops that announcement on, I think it was Instagram. I don't know where he dropped his announcement on, but it got dropped on social media. And for like a good solid 20 minutes, maybe an hour, it was just all Rob Gronkowski, Rob Gronkowski, Rob Gronkowski on my Twitter timeline. So just him retiring sort of just smashed through the March Madness window and said, hey, by the way, football's still a thing right now.
Yeah, did. I had to bring it up just because it became such a big thing. Everything was breaking news. I can't believe it. Rob Gronkowski. Now, if you're going to retire, the best time to retire is after winning a Super Bowl. And he probably should have done it on the stage that night. Said, that's it. This is it. I'm done. It would have reminded me of when, Jerome Bettis retired, because you look at those players, you see them declining, you know that the end is near, so you might as well go out on top. And Rob Gronkowski goes out on top. He only played 9 seasons in the NFL. It seems like it was longer, but he was always beat up. He had bad elbow injuries, a couple knee injuries. The guy took a beating, and he probably looked at it and said, you know what, it's just not worth it anymore. I'm gonna go out there. I've slowed up. I'm not getting the time. And in New England, when a player starts declining, what happens with them? they get traded or they
Yeah.
get cut. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are. Unless you're Tom Brady, he would be the exception to the rule. Everybody else in New England, once you see that decline coming, they will cut you in a heartbeat. They're not going to overpay him, and what his salary was entailed, they probably would have looked at trading him. I'm sure Matt Patricia would have been throwing some offers out over in Detroit, but it's probably better just to call it a career, and the legend of Rob Gronkowski will carry on forever.
Yeah, and that's kind of what sucks about being a big, tough guy that's hard to bring down. When you're the guy like Rob Gronkowski, when you look at a quarterback like Cam Newton, is I feel like players know they have to come at you and hit you harder than they normally would because they know that's what it's going to take to bring you down. Sometimes you think, oh, size will add durability, but not. Sometimes it just adds more wear and tear to the body because guys got to bring it hard to you in order to make a play on you. And it's the end of his career, and it's the end of our show, man. I want to say tune in tomorrow. I'm going to go back to our second or third episode, Loudbeard. I know you remember this, but some of our fans who are listening now, they didn't listen to us back 2 years ago or almost 2 years ago when we started the show. And now that LeBron James is out of the finals, I'm going to go back and get my top 8 streaks that are more impressive than LeBron James' 8 streak to the finals. And it's a list that featured Tim Tebow.
Sorry, premature.
Nope, no, you're fine. It's a feature that it's a list that features Tim Tebow and Mariah Carey.
There we go. Got it that time.
I mean, you could have still played it. We like to talk over the music.
We do. Man, great show.
Like we're doing like right now.
March Madness.
March Madness. Gronkowski. Woo! Party
NBA.
on, Garth. Party on, Garth.
Party on, Wayne. Hey, Bill and Ted's coming back.
I can't wait.
That's speaking of partiers, like those guys. Hey, what's up there, listeners? This is your friendly neighborhood Loudbeard, and I'm here to tell you that there's 2 type of people in the world, those that are on a podcast and those that want to be on a podcast. And if you are one of those out there that want to be on a podcast, one of the first decisions you will need to make is which podcast host you want to use. That's right. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, you need to check out Podbean. Here at Scout Team Radio, we have been using Podbean since the very beginning, and we absolutely love it. They are easy to use, and they have affordable options. Just go to podbean.com/STR. That's right, Scout Team Radio. Podbean.com/STR to get started today. What are you waiting for?